You're all good to go? Okay, excellent. Well, thanks so much for coming this afternoon. I'm really delighted to be here at Output in Edmonton, a great startup that does really cool work in the tech industry. And it's great to be here because my announcement today is about supporting entrepreneurs and innovation in the Canadian economy. We know that we have a productivity challenge in Canada, and particularly with the threats that we're facing from south of the border, today it is so important that we are supporting our economy in Canada. And we've had lots of conversations about knocking down barriers when it comes to interprovincial trade, about ensuring that our businesses can export around the world. As a government, we have made sure that we've opened up new markets in Europe, in Latin America, in Asia. But my announcement today is that as future Prime Minister, as leader of the Liberal Party, I want to create 1 million new entrepreneurs in Canada. And it's exciting to be here in Edmonton, in Alberta, because I know that Albertans have a very entrepreneurial spirit. And so I'm here to announce 3 things today. First, my plan to unlock growth, ownership, and innovation. Second, to increase access to capital, and third, to support high growth sectors. And so the way that I plan to do this is first by thinking boldly and differently about how we support businesses. I want to ensure that we have support for business acquisition. So I plan to create a national program to provide training, mentorship, and advisory services for entrepreneurs looking to acquire existing businesses. Second, we need to simplify business transfer regulations. We need to reduce bureaucratic friction for small and medium-sized enterprises when they're transitioning by cutting red tape and expediting business ownership transfer processes. We need it to make it easier for entrepreneurs to buy and sell their businesses while ensuring that diversity in the market. And third, I want to create an immigration stream that is dedicated for entrepreneurial talent. So if you're a newcomer to Canada or you want to immigrate to Canada and you are committed to acquiring and scaling a business in Canada, we should fast track your application. It's the way that we are able to grow our economy and create more good jobs here in Canada. Second, I want to increase access to capital. What does this look like? It means expanding government-backed loan guarantees of up to $500,000 to $1 million per entrepreneur through the Business Development Bank of Canada and chartered banks. I want us to think differently about employment insurance and create an entrepreneurship lump sum program, similar to what Germany has, so that for eligible EI recipients, if they want to acquire or grow a business, we can support them to do that. I also think that we need a startup and innovation fund to help entrepreneurs launch businesses in high growth sectors like AI, green technology, and biotech. And I think we need to enhance the entrepreneurship incentive. So we need to encourage innovative entrepreneurs in research and startups to scale up their businesses, especially in the technology and manufacturing sectors, through targeted tax changes. And finally, my third pillar for supporting high growth sectors. You know, here in Edmonton, I know there's a big focus on AI and biotech, and so I want to ensure that we are supporting entrepreneurs across the country integrate AI into their businesses. We are at a pivotal point, I think, in our economy and when it comes to AI, that we can either choose to have AI to use to harness our productivity and our economic potential, or we will fall behind when it comes to the global economy. And I think in Canada, we can choose to harness AI and to use it and develop it responsibly to really increase our economic output and productivity in Canada. I also think that we need to develop funding and support networks for businesses focusing on sustainability and energy innovation. And finally, I want the government to be able to provide mentorship and export assistance to entrepreneurs in high-value manufacturing. Our economy is under threat right now, and we can choose to use this moment to unleash our potential, to be united as Canadians, and to really take Canada's economy to the next level. And one thing that I know about Canadians is that we are an entrepreneurial, innovative, resilient people. And when Canadians are called into action, they meet the moment. And so I think right now, when we know that there are threats from the south, when we need to figure out a way for us to really unleash our economy, protect our jobs, protect our way of life, supporting more entrepreneurs, challenging ourselves to create those businesses and support them here at home is something that is so important, and I know that as Canadians we can achieve this. And finally, I do want to announce that I would also reverse the capital gains tax increase that the government brought in last spring. We need to create an environment for entrepreneurs and businesses to succeed so that more Canadians have good jobs and a better way of life. Thank you. I'll take your questions now.
First thing I want to ask about is, Canada is a country that, we compare it to our G7 allies, not as high entrepreneurial rates as some of those other countries. So I'm just asking a little bit about, I guess, how do we change that trend, and then also, we'll probably just start with that.
Yeah, so that's exactly what this announcement is today. It's about having an ambitious goal of creating 1 million new entrepreneurs in Canada. But in order for us to do that, we have to make entrepreneurship viable for Canadians. We have to make sure that there is an environment in which they can grow their business and keep their business here in Canada. So that means access to capital. It means the right kind of tax system that incentivizes businesses to be built and to grow here at home. And I think it's about, making this a viable option for Canadians and encouraging them to take on these businesses, create these businesses, or acquire businesses that are already here. So for me, this is about, how do we build that economy for the 21st century and support Canadians to be successful?
And just to follow up a little bit on the, as you say, the threat from down south, whereabouts do you put sort of everything that's going on with that? On the scale of, a negotiating tactic to existential threat, where should we view that, and how does your response, differ from that of the Prime Minister or Mr. Carney?
Yeah, so look, first of all, I don't think it's appropriate to freelance right now when the entire country is focused on protecting Canada's sovereignty, protecting our economy, and protecting our jobs. So I stand in complete solidarity with every single person at the federal level, at the provincial level, at the business level, and the union level, right down to everyday Canadians who are, I'm so proud of how Canadians have been responding when, they're called upon. I was just in Red Deer having coffee with some folks, and one of the women was saying, when she goes to the grocery store, she's looking at the labels and making sure she's choosing Canadian products. Like, Canadians are standing strong and united, and that is something that is extraordinarily important and inspiring to see. I think we have to take the threat from Donald Trump seriously. It very well could be his negotiating tactic, and we know that that's how the president likes to negotiate, but we shouldn't take anything for granted, and we shouldn't dismiss any of his claims either. We have to be prepared, strategic, thoughtful, and strong in our response, because we know that the one thing Donald Trump responds to is strength. And when Canadians stood united a couple of weeks ago in the face of that tariff threat, and we did not back down, and we showed that we are willing to stand up for ourselves, and if needed, we will, respond forcefully and with intelligence to the United States backed down. And so I know that Canadians will come out on top of this, what could be a trade war with the United States. We don't want it, but if we need to, as Canadians, we know how to take the gloves off. Yeah, so look, our sovereignty is non-negotiable, and it is not something that can even be on the table. So when it comes to protecting Canada, we have to put everything on the table, because we will never be part of the United States. And in fact, one way that Canadians define ourselves is not American. We are an extremely proud people, and we have every right and every reason to be proud of who we are and to demonstrate to the Americans that they need us and they depend on us. Look, our countries have been partners, friends, allies, trading partners for decades, and it is a unique and special relationship. And, I heard President Trump say that he doesn't need anything from Canada. Actually, he does. It could be auto parts, it could be oil, it could be steel, aluminum, lumber, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, our soldiers have fought together, they have died together. We have families on both sides of the border. So we are not seeking this dispute, we will not elevate this dispute, but if we need to, we will respond. And as I said, I have every confidence in Canadians that we will come out on top. But in the interim, maybe I'll just add something there, because I think one of the things that we also need to reflect upon is that if we do find ourselves in this trade dispute, as Prime Minister, I would ensure that Canadians who could potentially lose their jobs or businesses that could be affected would have the support from the government to ensure that they can make ends meet on a day-to-day basis. And so when we do come out on top, we will ensure that we have those good jobs to go back to, because what we cannot afford is to have Canadian companies move to the United States. And so we need to do everything we can to keep them here. And that's part of today's announcement as well, is really creating a business environment that is going to attract new entrepreneurs and keep them here in Canada. And it's why last Thursday I made an announcement as well about modernizing the social safety net here in Canada. I graduated into the 2008 financial crisis, and I've never had a job where I qualified for EI. And my story is the story of so many Canadians who, whether they're a millennial or Gen Z or, of any generation, who are working multiple jobs on contract, don't have access to benefits and pensions, don't have access to the social safety net. We need to have a social safety net that is fit for purpose in 2025. And we can't go back to the thinking of the 80s and 90s, because our economy is different today. And we need government services and programs that are reflective of our actual economy and what people's needs are.
One of the, big problems with Canadian entrepreneurship is, of course, people who want to start a business leaving to the United States. Just wondering, is anything in here that you are announcing or that you hope to achieve sort of address the stay in Canada aspect of starting a business?
Yeah, well, I think access to capital is a really important one. What I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs is that when they get past the startup phase and they're looking to grow, we just don't have the kinds of investments in Canada to keep them here. And now many choose to, and many overcome those barriers. But when it comes in particular to AI, to biotech, to green technologies, we need to be making those investments in these industries so that amazing Canadian talent, those amazing Canadian skills, products, and services stay here, and that those businesses can grow and flourish, create good jobs, and build stronger economies in our communities.
Tying things back to this announcement here, you mentioned you were in Red Deer and now you're in Edmonton. Just want to ask about your Alberta trip and does this tie back to it in any way, or just a little bit about, your time here?
Yeah, well, I flew into Calgary last night. Unfortunately, I had a big event planned in Calgary, but because of the really terrible accident in Toronto, my flight was delayed, and I'm, just thinking about that awful accident, and really grateful for the first responders who acted so quickly and were able to help people. But, I wanted to make this announcement in Alberta because I know and respect the entrepreneurial nature of Albertans. And, particularly here in Edmonton, where there is such a flourishing tech sector, where there's so many interesting companies doing good work in AI that are really leading the country, I thought it was important to do it here in Edmonton, in Alberta, because I think, it's one of the ways in which Albertans lead the country. And I think it's something that all Canadians can aspire to. And for me, learning from that example and spreading that across the country is something that I think Albertans can be really excited and proud about, and it's something that I think we should be looking to adopt everywhere in Canada. Mm-hmm.
showing donations to leadership candidates. What does it say about your research?
Yeah, look, well, I think it's great to see so many Canadians engaged in the Liberal leadership race. And I'm thrilled to say that, you know, we've had over 3,000 Canadians contribute to my campaign. We continue to feel that grassroots momentum. And I'm just, you know, so encouraged by the response that I'm getting. And one of the things that I find so exciting about all of this is that, you know, that momentum just continues to build. And, you know, we continue to get more and more Liberals and Canadians joining our team and joining our campaign. There's more excitement building. I have been, you know, in Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. I'm in Alberta today, heading to Saskatchewan tomorrow. And the energy, the excitement, the movement momentum is just really wonderful. And so I'm so grateful to everyone who has made a contribution and excited to keep meeting people, hearing what matters to them and really listening to what's on their minds. And that's been just the most fun of all of this, is getting to speak to Canadians across the country, listening to what matters to them and making sure that that's reflected in the policies and the ideas that I'm putting out there.
And then there is a French debate next week.
Yeah.
And one of your fellow candidates has asked for a translator for the debate. What do you think what message do you think that sends Canadians or what the Liberal Party when candidates can't participate in French?
Yeah, look, I think anyone who is seeking to become Prime Minister of this country needs to be able to communicate fluently in both English and French. We have two official languages in Canada, and whether you are a Francophone living in Quebec or a Francophone living outside of Quebec, and there's a big Francophone community here in Alberta, in Edmonton, and particularly in northern Alberta, you have a right to hear from your Prime Minister in your official language. So for me, that is, you know, one of the entry-level requirements if you are seeking to become Prime Minister. Great. Well, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it, and I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Oh.